the worst thing that happens to foster kids really is that they move around from foster home to foster home way too much. So our program, the Source and CalFIRST, is really designed to try to slow that process. But I think what's important is understanding that there has to be a full continuum of care, and that sometimes does include even our residential program. Kids come to our residential program sometimes, and they're just not ready for the intimacy of maybe a foster home anyway. And they get some intensive services, they get a lot of support, and we try to get them back to a family member or to foster care.
Hi, I'm Jeff Holden. Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. Our purpose and passion is to highlight a nonprofit organization in each weekly episode, giving that organization an opportunity to tell their story in their words to better inform and educate the respective communities they serve, as well as provide one more tool for them to share their message to constituents and donors. Our goal is to help build stronger communities through shared voices and to both encourage and support the growth of local nonprofit organizations through podcasting. Thanks to our founding partners for their foresight in helping us transform the way conversations start. CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations. Runyon Saltzman Incorporated, RSE, marketing, advertising, and public relations creating integrated communications committed to improving lives. And Western Health Advantage, a full-service healthcare plan for individuals, employer groups, and families. Before the episode begins, I want to take a minute to share that we now have a website where you can sign up to get our weekly email updates on the latest episodes, transcripts to prior episodes, and see what else we have going on. Please be sure to register so you never miss an episode or any other important information we may have to share in the nonprofit space. You can find us now at nonprofpod.com. That's nonprofpod.com. You'll also notice on the website a microphone in the lower right-hand corner. By clicking on it, you'll be able to leave me voicemail messages, maybe a question you'd like me to ask our guests, or just a comment on the program. I may even play your message in an upcoming episode. I look forward to more engagement with you as we continue to grow and better serve our nonprofit community. Thanks. This episode is a story that no other children's institution or organization in Sacramento can match, as I'll be talking with the gentleman responsible for the operation of a community icon, a beloved institution and a source of support and refuge for many, protecting children, supporting families, and working toward the prevention of domestic violence and substance use disorders. The Children's Home is an oasis for families and children in crisis. David Baker is CEO of the Sacramento Children's Home, an institution that has provided hope for children and families in crisis since 1867. Yes, 1867. He's been with the organization since 2013. He'll share the Children's Home's evolution from a simple orphanage to a comprehensive service provider offering foster care, mental health support, and crisis intervention. We explore their commitment to prevention and early intervention programs aimed at keeping families together and the vital role of crisis nurseries in Sacramento County. Our discussion highlights the extensive support network that Children's Home provides, celebrates the inspiring success stories of the program alumni, and underscores the power of community partnerships in fostering a brighter future for all, showcasing the legacy and unwavering love that continue to drive the Children's Home, preventing abuse and neglect for thousands of children annually. David Baker, welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And thank you, Jeff, for really providing this opportunity, but also to all the nonprofits locally that have had an opportunity to come on with you. It's a great venue. It's a great opportunity to share the work that people are doing.
Well, this is a special one because you are certainly one of the most iconic organizations in the community, in the city, and even in the region for all that's been going on for well over 100 years. And mid-1800s, if I'm not mistaken.
1867.
1867. Not very many people can sit in that chair and say we've been around since 1867.
Yes, I wasn't there, just to be clear, in 1867. Although it feels like it sometimes.
I'm sure sometimes. You know, you've grown from a children's home where originally that's all it did to so much more and so many more services and programs, from what used to be, you know, the youngest in our community to now up to 18, and in some cases even up to 26 years old, correct?
Yes.
Tell us about some of the programs and the history that got us to where we are today and the envelopment of what takes place there today.
Sure. Children's Home really is, I know we've been there 157 years, and so now we're sort of a staple in the community, but really started as a grassroots organization, a community-based organization. Not to go too long on the long history, but Elvira Baldwin really started the Children's Home because there was kids living down on the river and essentially what we would call, unhoused or homeless kids, and she was trying to make sure there was a place for them. And so that just sort of developed into an orphanage, and for many years was operated as an orphanage. But even during that time, was often responsive to what the needs of the community was at the time. So we had, for a long time in the early 1900s, we had what we called the stork nest, which is very similar to what we do with our crisis nursery now, just because there was a need. But over time, it's sort of developed into more of I will say, a comprehensive child and family service organization. So we do still serve foster youth, but we only have 16 foster youth that live on campus. That's primarily due to, I'll just call it a combination of federal and state regulations that have limited us to 16 at this time on our campus. But most of what we have done over the years, as time has evolved, since it moved away from being an orphanage, there was a time where probably 90 kids lived on campus, maybe 100, and there was some kids that lived out in the community as well. But over time, we've really turned into more of a prevention and early intervention, mental health, a lot of different supports, including residential, which still remains important part of the continuum of care for foster youth and options. But it's not as used as heavily today because we know we have a lot of other programs that can, one, keep kids with their families, two, support kids in foster homes if they are removed from their families, and hopefully help break a cycle of abuse that leads to kids having to be removed. So the majority of our programs now are either prevention programs, early intervention programs, or mental health and crisis support programs.
And they're not just necessarily for the individual, but for the families of the individual as well. So they fully encompass the family.
Yeah, we serve children and families together, and sometimes we have, sometimes we'll get connected to a family because of one child who needs support, and that turns into a full menu of services that can support the other kids in the family, but also in many cases the family.
In terms of, let's start with maybe the smallest of the small. That's the crisis nursery.
Yeah.
What causes one to end up there?
Yeah, so we have two crisis nurseries. One's in the south, over in Southland Park area, and one's in the north, over off of Pasadena. Just recognizing that in terms of getting folks when they're in need, it helps to have locations in both spots. But what usually leads to folks using the nursery, and just to be clear, the nursery is open to anybody in Sacramento County who has a child 0 to 5 who needs support. So that means they could come to the nursery because they have a need for an emergency childcare situation, and they're worried about losing their job, and they may just be there for 6 hours, 8 hours until they're finished with their shift. Or they could be experiencing some sort of domestic violence situation. We have folks that come in experiencing homelessness or at least having some challenges in those areas. It's a safe place for children for an hour or up to 30 days. So,
oh wow,
the average length of stay is probably no more than 3 days, but we do have kids that stay for 30 days. But what's important about that is what we provide is a safe, loving, caring place for these children to be, while our case managers can work with families about resolving whatever the crisis was and helping them get the support they need for long term. Mm-hmm. But sometimes in the moment, you just need someone to help you. I always think about it like I have 2 kids, and when they were little, I needed help. My wife and I needed help, and we got that help from family members, friends, and that sort of thing. But not everybody's always in a position to have that. So the nursery fills that role for a lot of people, but it takes a little bit further, providing case managers and other support for families to hopefully help get them in a position where maybe they won't need to use the nursery at all. Mm-hmm. But what we try to make sure that we view using the nursery as actually a positive thing when a family has a situation that could create any sort of safety issue for kids. We'd rather have them come to the nursery and have a safe, good place for them. Kids will get fed. They'll have a nice place to sleep. They'll get clothes, new clothes. They'll get, all of that stuff. They'll have a great time while they're there, and they'll be supported. And then we can help that family. And I sometimes families will say, a woman was telling me recently, sometimes they would come to the nursery from time to time, and then the children would be so excited to come there, and they almost made it easier for them, right? So this is a place where my child seems like, oh, this is a fun place that I go where people take care of me and care for me. It has nothing to do with, maybe they're oblivious to what's going on.
The reason why they're there.
Which is great.
Yes.
So what we want is kids to be safe and families to get the support they need.
Do you see children that come through the crisis nursery, maybe on occasion, is that an opportunity to engage that family then in some of the other services?
Absolutely. So one of the things the case managers do is make referrals, and a lot of times those are referrals to other programs run by the children's home. Sometimes they're programs run by other community partners. Really, it's just based on what the need is. It's very common for folks who come into the nursery to get referred to our family resource centers. We have 2 in South Sacramento, 1 in North Sac, and also sometimes get referred to our counseling center, where we can do a variety of outpatient mental health programming, especially if those clients coming in have Medi-Cal. We can do that through our counseling center.
And I recognize that Family Resource Center as FRC because I see it referred to in its acronym state in so many ways, because what is an FRC? Which is important. What are some of the most used services that you provide? Where do you see a lot of the volume coming through?
Sure. So our counseling center certainly has a lot of folks who come through there. We provide what is referred to in Sacramento County as flexible integrated treatment. So we can support families there having very low-level mental health needs, maybe just some therapy or some other minor sort of thing, all the way up to multiple times a week. Maybe if they need some medication support, we have psychiatrists who can see them on all of that sort of thing. So in terms of number of clients coming through there, we usually have 400 to 500 clients that are being served in there at any given time. So the nursery obviously is a drop-in, so we never know how many kids are going to be there. We staff so that we can take up to, between the two, it's around 25, 26 kids, and it depends on ages. Sometimes if we have more infants, then because of ratios and that sort of thing. We do run a program called The Source, which is a crisis response program for all of Sacramento County. So anybody in Sacramento County can call The Source if they have a child between basically 0 to 26. And so that the client, the 0 to 26 child, so to speak, can call, or a caregiver for that person who cares about them can call. And they can provide support on the phone or by text 24/7. And we can send somebody out generally within an hour anywhere in the county 24/7. So that becomes a spot where it's a lot of clients can come through The Source, and what we can do is work with them. We go out and help calm down that whatever crisis they're having at the time. We can work with them, and then we can stay with them and get them connected to some longer-term support. So certainly a lot of folks come through there, and that number is 916 support. So anybody can use that number, call or text. So we run something similar for current and former foster youth for the whole state of California, who can also call. It's called Family Urgent Response System, or FURS, CalFURS. But it's very specific.
And it's FURS, correct?
FURS, yes. It's very specific for current and former foster youth who are struggling. And we can, same thing, we can help you on the phone or through text, or we can send someone out within an hour anywhere in the state of California. Now, we don't go out to every county. We'll go out in Sacramento County, but we have partners throughout the whole state that can respond within an hour of the warm handoff. So those urgent response programs obviously receive a lot of calls, and so they're serving a lot of kids and families throughout the day on all night.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah,
that is a big deal.
And then, of course, so also the family resource centers do see a lot of families. They're seeing families on a lot of different levels. They'll do home visitation with some families and do a parenting curriculum with those families. Those are really designed to often are referrals for folks that might have had a touch with CPS or just seeking out some support. They don't have to have necessarily have a touch, but we do get referrals that way. And the idea is, how do we keep these situations from turning into any sort of referral to CPS or any removals? So really, our goal is to keep kids at home and avoid most families. Everybody needs help sometimes. So most families, if we can get in early and provide support, the data shows that those kids will stay in the home and they won't have any additional contact with CPS.
And for the benefit of the acronym, that's Child Protective Services.
Child Protective Services, yes.
Yeah. How many children do you serve in a year?
So that I always have this debate with my quality improvement team, I should say. We probably serve between 7,000 and 8,000 kids and families here in Sacramento County. And if you include the statewide hotline that I was talking to, we'll get in the 14 to 15,000 range.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on how you count them, right? So if someone calls up and they are looking for a referral, you make a referral. It's a very thing. We still serve that child. But then we have on the higher end, we have kids living with us in our residential program, or we'll have folks that we've stayed with we have a wraparound program, which really works to keep kids stabilized and not having to go to higher levels of care. They might stay with them, for 6 months or 8 months. We have TBS program, which is therapeutic behavioral services, and they're in for a very specific time, but that could be an extended period of time, and they're working on a very specific behavior. So let's say you have a child who has a very specific behavior that gets them into difficult situations at school. So that team will come in and do functional analysis and work with that child and work with the family and maybe the school to say, how do we reduce that behavior to the point where it's no longer disruptive and affecting. So it goes through ranges of kids and how long we work with them. But if we add them up for the year, it's probably 7,000, 8,000, depending on how you count them. So the reason I say how you count them is like some kids we might work with in January, and then we might work with them again in August. So
are they one or are they two?
Or are they two? So,
gotcha.
But yes, it's definitely in that range.
It's still an astronomical number. It's a huge number of touches and influence you have in the community in a variety of different ways, from family to the individual in school, to the individual just with an issue at home or wherever it happens to be if they call in through the support line. I mean, that's an enormous responsibility. How about numbers of people? How many people work for you?
So we have about just under 300 probably.
Okay.
From depending on what day it is. You know, we struggle like everybody does these days to find enough high quality staff. We'd probably serve more kids if we could find more staff. But I will say our HR team and our managers do a great job of finding people and training them and getting them all the tools they need. So, but we probably close to 280 to 300. Mm-hmm. So, and that depends on how you count them too, because we also really lucky to have AmeriCorps folks that work for us. The AmeriCorps is sort of like Peace Corps here. Mm-hmm. So, at any given time, I might have, 20 or 30 AmeriCorps who to me are just as they're part of our team, just like everybody else, but technically not an employee. So that's where I say around 300. Yeah.
They're not your payroll tax and
but they're here every day working with kids and families and So.
That's outstanding that you have that other support mechanism and then you probably have a cadre of volunteers as well, I would imagine.
We do. We have probably I think we probably could have as many as 1,000 a year sometimes volunteers. Some volunteers come in and do regular volunteer work. We have a couple really great examples of folks that have been working with our kids in residential or at the nursery for long periods of time, and they stick with that. And then we also have volunteers who come in to work an event or come in and to do a day. We have companies that come in and they'll do a day of painting or a day of yard work or different things that we could do. So there's always a lot of folks that are interested in getting involved.
We'll be back with more from David Baker on the Sacramento Children's Home right after these messages from the people who make the program possible. I was in the media business for over 35 years and had the great privilege of working with Runyon Saltzman, RSE, Marketing, Advertising, and Public Relations. We collaborated on many different campaigns, but their commitment to the nonprofit sector hasn't changed since their founder, Gene Runyon, started the agency. Over many years and many campaigns, Runyon Saltzman has been committed to improving lives by tackling California's most challenging issues. Guided by research-informed strategies and insightful, creative solutions, RSE develops innovative communications campaigns that raise awareness, educate, and reduce stigma in diverse communities throughout our state and beyond. To learn more about RSE, visit rs-e.com.
Hello, this is Scott Thomas with Cap Trust in our Sacramento office. I specialize in working with local nonprofits and associations. Annually, we survey private and public nonprofit organizations across the country to better understand challenges they see in today's environment. In our more recent survey, we heard concerns about proper board governance, mission-aligned investment, and how to implement alternative investments. If you would like a copy of the survey or to discuss your organization, look me up, Scott Thomas at captrust.com.
I'm thrilled to have Western Health Advantage partnering with us as they do so much to support so many nonprofit agencies in our community. As a truly local health plan, you'll find individual and family options, employer options, plans for CalPERS and Medicare Advantage. From medical services to pharmacy, health and wellness support, as well as behavioral health care, Western Health Advantage has a plan that fits what you need. As an employer, for profit or nonprofit business, individual or family, you can find more at westernhealth.com. Let's talk a little bit about the funding for the organization. And by the way, your annual report is one of the cleanest, simplest.
I appreciate you saying that.
To read through.
Good. We've worked a lot on trying to really be transparent and share what we're doing and how we're having an impact on the community.
Yeah, and I say that for the benefit of the other nonprofit leadership that may be listening to say, hey, this is a good one. You can see how it's distributed very clearly, as well as for somebody in a philanthropic sense that's looking to say, I want to contribute. What does it look like? It's well done. It's a big budget. You work with a large organization. What is the total budget you work with?
So it runs around $29 million this year is what we're projecting. So some of that depends on if will we get to that number? Has a lot to do with do we connect with enough people and hire enough staff to be able to do that. So I'd say it's close to $29 million for all of the programs.
And the majority of the funding comes from state and or county provided services, correct?
Yeah, we have contracts with the county. We have state contract. We have contracts with First Five Sacramento. And so that's all sort of a blend. Some of the county funds are actually a mix of state and federal funds, and some of the state funds might be just state funds. It's a bit of a blend, but I would say it's, governmental funding. So that's the majority of what we do.
And you have a small percentage then that's fundraising. What does that look like?
So not all of our programs are fully funded. So for example, the nursery we have a great relationship and we have a great partner in First Five Sacramento, and they fund, I didn't bring numbers with me, but they fund, let's just say in 800 and something thousand, maybe 850 or so, thousand a year, which is terrific. And then we'll have to raise another 1.2 million to operate the two. So that's sort of how everything is broken down. Most of our programs, with the exception of our mental health programs, which are generally fully funded, we bring in some fundraising dollars as well to make sure that we can first meet the need of the community and also make sure we have high quality services. And it's really important to support our staff too. Our staff working with kids and families that we do, they're real heroes at times, and we want to make sure that we're able to pay them in a way and provide benefits to them in a way that's recognition of what a great job they do and retain these wonderful people. And so programs that aren't funded to the degree that would be able to meet those needs, that's where the money goes to support those. So we wouldn't be able to bring as many kids into the nursery if we didn't fundraise money. We wouldn't be able to see as many families, and we wouldn't be able to have as high quality of staff and as many staff as we do to serve the communities through our family resource centers if people didn't support. And same for residential. Residential is not fully funded these days either. And so to make sure that those kids, the foster youth that we have in our residential program all have trauma histories that really create a situation where the most support we can get them, the better, right? So that means providing a good environment for them, making sure they have access to all of the services that they need, and make sure that there's people around that are willing to support them even when they're having a hard time.
What do some of those events look like, the fundraising events? Oh,
events. So in terms of raising funds, we do events, but we also have folks that just support us in general. So we have a few really...
Okay, so just basic call to actions.
Our largest events for the year, we partner with a group called PINK, which is philanthropy inspired by the needs of the community. Group of women who started that organization several years ago, and they started partnering with us to put on what we call our Lux for Life big gala event. That just happened a few weeks ago. It was terrific. We also host our annual crab feed. Many people say it's the best crab feed in the region. They'd be right. And it's a great place. It's a great crab feed.
It's an unbiased opinion.
It sells. You should come. It sells out every year, and you won't see anything like it when we start those auctions and start selling those cakes and other things that they make for those. We also we partner with a lot of folks in the community. Recently, we do the Sac Century. It's a 100-mile bike ride.
Oh, the bike ride, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to go 100 miles, but a lot of people do. And that's through a partnership with Sacramento Rotary. And the Rotary does a terrific job. The downtown Sacramento Rotary, definitely outstanding Rotary around here, one of the longest standing Rotary programs. And we partner with them. The proceeds from that ride benefit the nursery.
Okay.
So another thing is we do have what we call our Crisis Nursery Sustainer Circle. People give monthly. That's a big program for the nursery because it's an ongoing need. We know every year we're going in for over $1 million that we have to raise, and it never goes down. The cost to run things goes up. We pay people more, electricity costs more, gas costs more, insurance costs, everything costs more.
Doesn't ever seem to go backwards, does it?
No, it doesn't. So we struggle with that. So those are the main events. I think there's a lot of other events. One thing that this community is so good about is organizations want to raise money and they'll look to find a partner, and we get that. Partnering with us has shown to a really great way to have a great event and raise a lot of money and to go for a good cause. So while I do have a philanthropy department that does help support all of those events, many of them are what I would call third-party events. There's some different golf tournaments that occur. There's a big softball tournament that occurs, and those are all put on by other folks.
Those are the ones we love.
Yeah.
Because you just get the proceeds. You don't have to.
Yeah, well, we're in a position, I think our team really helps support those folks too, because when you're trying to put something like that on, our network, it's just us sharing, gets a lot of people to show up.
You're right, because you have such a broad network of people.
Yeah, and we have so many volunteers. When you put on something like the Rotary brings in so many volunteers, but when we partner together, it's just really amplifies that because we have our volunteers, we have the volunteers who always volunteer for Rotary events, and Rotary members like myself show up to help with those things. So it's really sort of amplifies the impact that you can have.
You're mentioning one group, the Rotarians, which are so significant to so many community organizations. Who else do you collaborate with? And I can only imagine, because of all your services, there's just a cadre of people that are...
Yeah, I mentioned the Pink, I mentioned them, and we still have a guild it's an auxiliary of ours that's called the Friends of the Crisis Nursery. So that's a group they do a nice event every year. The last couple of years, they've done it at Track 7 Brewery, but they've done it at other places as well. But they've done a really nice job at those, and they bring in dollars, that sort of thing. So for fundraising, those are the main folks that we probably...
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm talking more about your collaborations in the community.
Outside of that, we're part of our family resource centers. There's 9 Birth and Beyond family resource centers in the community. We run 3 of them. So we're part of a Birth and Beyond collaborative that's doing a lot of work to keep families together and to provide support to those families. We also part of the California Alliance for Children and Family Services, which is a statewide organization that we partner with and we're a member of to try to move at times to make sure the word is getting out about what's really needed and educate people about some of the difficulties that are happening in the state related to foster youth or mental health and that sort of thing. And then inside in the FRCs, the Family Resource Centers, we partner with local folks in those neighborhoods. So if we're in Valley High, we partnership with other organizations, like-minded organizations, like Rose Family is over one that comes to mind that we partner with over in Valley High. So just a variety of folks that they can make sure that we're reaching the folks that we need to reach. And we partner with Weave on a lot of things.
Domestic violence.
They come in and provide domestic violence counseling for our clients in our family resource centers. We offer them some office space, and we work out that they come out and provide services that way. Different times we've partnered with different community groups around. We bring in dental clinics. We bring in Dr. Wilgus. Dr. Wilgus is a dentist, local dentist. He's arranged to bring in traveling dentists that come in with a van and they get services to our clients and that might be needing that. So there's anybody in the past we've had Sac State bring in nursing students. So we try to partner with whoever makes sense.
Yeah, that's fabulous because I can see so many organizations that either by referral, in to say, hey, here's a place you can get to because they can't service it, and or using their services as a benefit to your community at large. And
we have some built-in things on our first 5 contracts, which is our Family Resource Center. Some of our Family Resource Center's first 5 contracts. It's a very complicated weave of funding at the Family Resource Centers, but also at the nursery. So we share some information back and forth so that when anybody comes into one of those funded programs, they can make referrals automatically out to the other first 5 funded programs. We make referrals to Help Me Grow and some other stuff in the community. So, but what's important is that that's all done in collaboration with the client. We don't just send out information about people,
Right, right.
But sometimes we can say, we can make a real quick connection for you. And one of the biggest things that they do at the source, which is the urgent response thing, is getting people connected to providers for mental health services. So sometimes that could be one of our programs, but sometimes it could be, River Oak or Stanford Youth Solution or Stanford Sierra Health, whatever they're called now.
Yes, the revised names.
Yes. Laura does a great job over there, and we make referrals over there. And, there's a lot of different community partners that we make referrals to, especially for mental health services.
If money were no object, what would the organization look like?
I think it'd look a lot like it does now. It would just be, we'd be able to provide even more services, right? So the nursery is limited to the number of kids that we can go at our 2 locations based on 2 things. One, on license capacity.
Okay.
And a bigger driver of that is the number of staff that we can find to work there. We have some really amazing staff who work at the nursery, but finding those folks and having enough of them is always a challenge. And I think people will tell you these days it's hard to find employees,
Yes.
and especially employees
Everywhere.
that are trained and that are passionate and that care about our mission and our vision and share our values around how we should be working with kids and families. So if, of course, you'd like to think a driver of that is being able to pay people enough money, but we have a woman who works in our residential program who's been there for 45 years.
Oh my gosh.
Working directly with the kids. So, so it's clear that she's not there because of the amount we pay her, right? Otherwise, she would probably have moved up into another position, but she's still a childcare worker because all she cares about is making sure that these kids have the care and the supervision and the love that they should have. So we're really looking for those people. But I think, obviously if funding was unlimited, then we would be able to pay those people a lot more money and we might be able to find them easier.
Right.
So that would be one thing. I really firmly believe that there's a role for our residential program. It's much smaller than it used to be. Because there are kids at times that they're not ready, or they're, for whatever reason, how they manifest their trauma and the behaviors that they have, it's difficult to manage them in a home-based setting. But certainly if we could put enough services in place, maybe those kids could stay and never be removed. But those kids sometimes are in the foster care system. The worst thing that happens to foster kids really is that they move around from foster home to foster home way too much. So our program, the Source and CalFIRST, is really designed to try to slow that process. But so if money was unlimited, we'd make sure that those families had everything that they needed so that kids wouldn't have to move. But I think what's important is understanding that there has to be a full continuum of care, and that sometimes does include even our residential program. Kids come to our residential program sometimes, and they're just not ready for the intimacy of maybe a foster home anyway. And they get some intensive services, they get a lot of support, and we try to get them back to a family member or to foster care. So that program is not funded to the degree that it should be, I think, in the state of California. So funding for foster care at all levels is not funded to the degree to really meet the need. So if I had unlimited funds, I could make that place I think we do a pretty great job with the kids now, but you could provide even more support if you had more revenue, right?
Sure.
That's just a reality. It's just not to take away from the work that's being done. I think that we have some pretty incredible people that work with kids that end up in residential care, and more importantly, the kids that we have in residential care, they get what they need while they're there, and we try to connect them back home or back to foster care. Or we have more and more kids that are just going to exit from us out into the world. And we have some staff who work on making sure that they're prepared for that. So they do a good job of that.
And now coming back to reality with the budget constraints that we all have to work within, what's the greatest need you've got at the children's home?
We have a need to make sure that we can continue to find high-quality staff that really care about the mission and the vision, are passionate about kids. That's, some of that is funding enough so that, honestly, it's really sometimes the funding on that is really about how could we make sure that these folks can stay in this business, which means paying them enough money and having opportunities for them to grow inside of our agency or outside is really important. But workforce development right now is a real struggle. There's not enough licensed social workers and therapists to fill all of the need. So if we could get more folks on that track in college and otherwise, that would be good. We have a need to continue to grow what we would call like our peer support. So I think there's been some good strides in California to recognize how important having folks with lived experience is and have an avenue for them to get involved in working with kids and families without having to necessarily get a degree and get licensed. But they've created some certification programs for those folks, which have been really positive. Some of our peers and our what we call family partners are sometimes much more effective in supporting families than a licensed therapist is, and then sometimes the other way around, right? So the more we could look at getting those folks involved and creating avenues for them, I think would be good. I think it goes without saying, every time the nursery comes up, there's no natural funding source for crisis nurseries. That's why there's not very many of them.
Okay.
And so, if we could, we always need to raise money for the nursery, and we always need to figure out how we can have more of a natural support for that. If there was a natural funding for that was built in, I think we'd be able to even grow it. People are always asking for a third site, but there's no. First Five has been a great partner in helping support the nursery. Actually, so has Sacramento County Department of Children and Family Services. They have supported the nursery. It makes a lot more sense for someone who's struggling to be able to visit the nursery than have to get involved with Child Protective Services and have their child removed, when all they need is a little help,
right?
Little support during that difficult time. So funding for that would be terrific. It's always hard to find staff for that program, but that's related to making sure we can pay people a reasonable wage so that they can do it, right?
Yeah, right.
And then I think you were asking about what's needed. I think that on the residential side, we've had what the state has done, what's called continuum of care reform. You may have heard about it. It's a lot of reforms with the idea of doing a few things. One is keeping kids in their family if you can, making sure that kinship care is available, meaning that if they can't be with their biological parents, that they could be with their aunt, their uncle, their grandmother, and that those folks would be supported in a way that they could do that. But really what I think is important is that as we build out more support for youth and trying to keep them out of congregate care situations like residential programs, well, we've seen in the news where kids are, stuck in social worker offices or hotels or something like that. The reality is we need a strong continuum of care so that when there's kids that are in these positions where there's no place for them at the time, that there is a place for them. And so some of the regulations and the funding related to that has resulted across the state of California for less and less beds to be available for those kids in residential care. And while it's never our goal to have kids in residential care, what I think is important is that in that continuum that those kids have a place. That
there's an opportunity for them.
So that they're not sitting at a shelter and they're not sitting in a social worker's office for days at a time. And so programs like that, like ours, and there's others across the state, it's becoming more and more difficult to preserve those beds for those kids when needed. So we don't need 90 anymore at the Sacramento Children's Home, but we certainly need some, because when there's a kid that's in need, we want to be there. So funding for that has become a strain, but we have incredible support. People understand the need to help support kids in foster care and kids that are in residential care. And in this community, so we have our kids, they come into our program and they get all of the required stuff and they get all of that. But I will say at the Children's Home, because of the community, we have fun snow trips, camping trips, all kinds of things that a lot of kids have never experienced. And they experienced it their first time when they go on a snow trip with our staff, right?
First time they've seen snow, right?
Yeah, some of them.
It's amazing to me.
Some of them we've gone on camping trips in the snow and they've never experienced that. They go, this summer they went on a great multi-day adventure sort of camping thing that they did. And those things are not funded through the traditional funding sources, right? Those are all because we have a great support here in Sacramento. And we're about to hit our holiday season. And if you've ever been to the Children's Home during the holiday season, it's quite a sight, the amount of support that comes in from the community.
Donation of gifts and bicycles and toys.
And all of that. The kids in residential are well taken care of related to that. But what's really nice is that we'll give out thousands of toys and grant wishes for thousands of kids across the whole region through all of our programs. And We have some great supporters who also won't just bring in toys. Like, so you can come down and get a star, and you can go out and you can buy that gift, and we'll make sure it gets to that child. You can pick which child you want. I'm supporting a 5-year-old, or I'm supporting a 16-year-old, right? It looks different.
Yep.
But we have some great supporters too that now come in and adopt whole families, because it's really great when kids, have some toys under the tree. But we work with families that, we'd like to have something there for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had some great supporters comes in. Some of them are companies, some individuals who come in and they'll just buy everything for the whole family, which is really great.
It's wonderful. It makes it easier for everybody.
Yeah, it sure does. And it's when we have toys for kids that we give, and our staff will go out and bring them to the home, that you can see the parents, they're so excited because they were really worried that their kid wasn't going to get much. And now here's some really great stuff for them. But they're just overwhelmed.
Yes.
If you also show up with a new set of pots and pans
for the family,
family, or, whatever they needed, Parents won't normally ask for things for themselves. They want to take care of their kids. So when we do the adopt a family, it's nice because we kind of force them to say, well, what do you need?
Right.
And we take care of that too.
Yeah.
Because if you ask them, they're just going to tell you what they need for their kids. That's a universal thing, right?
Yes.
For parents. So it's really great that we have people who support adopting a whole family, so.
Let me ask you about success stories. I know you've got a few.
Yeah, sure.
And I say that, very, very sarcastically almost. You probably have so many. Tell us a couple stories of people who have gone through the program and it really has benefited, and now they are wonderful contributors to the community.
Sure. We have a woman who is on our board. And if you go on our website, you'll see videos and her talking about her experience. She would do 10 times better than I will ever do.
Yes.
Trying to explain her.
And we're going to refer everybody to that website
her journey.
too.
But she was, found herself with a young child and didn't have a lot of support, just like I was talking about earlier. You usually turn to family and friends, but if you're in a position where you don't have that at the moment, she was really lucky. Someone referred her to the nursery. And over the years, she used the nursery on and off, and now she has, her and her husband, it's kind of interesting because, her child used to come as a baby, but now she's a teenager or something. So it's pretty amazing. But what's amazing to see how just a little bit of support every once in a while, she was able to go to school. She's working, and has built up her own support system. But she'll tell you that sometimes she refers to, the old adage of it takes a village, and she really talks about how for a moment in time where things were really tough for her, the only village she had was the nursery.
Mm-hmm.
She has a whole bunch of support now, but to see somebody do that and use the nursery and now have built up her own network of support, and for her to want to come back and be part of our board and make sure that our program is available for other moms and other families in the future. It's really heartwarming to see someone who says, the program was there for me, so now I'm going to come and be there for the program. And she's been one of our greatest advocates. And to hear her, like I said, I won't be able to do it. And she tells her story, and I think we have some videos of it. The room, everybody will be in tears, right? So, but we also have folks who just call up and they check in and they just say how important it was for them, whatever program they were involved with. It's very common for folks to come that were part of our residential program. They come to tell somebody that was a big part of their life, here's what I'm doing that's good.
Mm-hmm.
You usually tell your parents that, or you tell your family that. So they come to the children's home to do that a lot. They're always looking for, is so-and-so still here? Is this person still here? I want to tell them how well I'm doing and what I'm going through and all of that. And so it's great. And they'll just show up unsolicited from time to time.
Yeah.
Sometimes those folks will be nice enough to show up at one of our events and talk about their experience as well. I think it's well documented. There's a gentleman, Miles Cooley, who's an attorney down in LA, who's very outspoken about over the years, not just about the children's home, but just about the need to make sure that foster kids get the support that they need. And when we had our 150th anniversary, he came and told his story about how he was living at the children's home, and ended up being adopted and had such an impact on his life that he shares that now with a lot of folks. So those people do come by from time to time and share, and sometimes they'll come out and talk. And I think like I said, we'll have videos on our website of some of those folks talking about their experience. But it is helpful because I will say a lot of times you don't get to see the fruit of your work, so to speak, right? not to go off on this too long, but Friday I was at Habitat for Humanity volunteering there, hanging siding on a house over in Oak Park, right? It's just a great organization as well. And so I was down there working all day and had a great time. And I was doing that with a group from Rotary, but I've also done that as a volunteer. But at the end of the day, I said, "Oh, look we have this house has all the siding up, so it's like,
looks so much
and actually
better.
Looks straight." I was just shocked since they had me doing it. So, but they have a great group there. But my point is, if you work at a place like that does great work, when the house is done, you see here's the house and people move in. It's not always like that at the children's home. Sometimes you work with a child or a family for 15 minutes. And you may never work with them again in our crisis support, or a child might come into the nursery for a couple days, and then we help them and we don't see them again. Or you have kids live in residential for 7 or 8 months, and we may not see them again. You don't really see day to day. Sometimes you do, but you don't get to see all the times like what is the result, and that's when kids come back. Or adults come back now,
yes.
And they come back and talk about what a difference it made in their life. Or they call up. They do call a lot, and they want to talk to somebody and tell them, what a difference it made for them. It just it's just a much longer game, right? We don't see the result for 10 years or 15 years, but it is nice to see that result.
Well, it's great to hear it too, because it gives
Yes.
everybody that feel good of we're doing something positive, making a difference in somebody's life, even if it was, like you said, just that 15 minutes.
Yeah.
David, what's the best way to learn about the organization?
The website is good, kidshome.org, but the best way is to come and take a tour, and you can come out and take a tour of the main campus. The main campus is like 16 acres, so you just kind of see where the buildings are and hear about the services. It's not really you won't see clients and things like that, right? So
it is a beautiful campus.
But it's a nice. You probably came out and took the tour, and then also we can also tour the nursery for folks who are interested in that. Although, we try to limit those around confidentiality stuff too. But we do like to have folks come out and see what a nice place it is. How wonderful we make the nursery for kids coming in, and the facilities on campus are really great.
Well,
so that's the best way. You can also attend an event. You get to hear, and if you want to hear about, often we have people come and speak at the events. They want to share their story, and so that's a really great way to. We don't always have folks at those events, but a lot of times we do. Like I said, those tend to be just based on people just show up and say they would want to share, and we'll say, "Hey, do you want to share it to a bigger group?"
Right.
So
7,000 to 8,000 a year of them is a large number of people that you've impacted.
And for 157 years, so we do have
do the math on that one, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of great. I can't say how wonderful our board is, and they're all volunteers, but many of them have long-standing histories as well with the children's home, whether it was their parents or their grandparents volunteered, or sometimes they live there. Depends on which folks. And they've come back and said, "This I remember as a child, my mom volunteering here, and so now I want to make a difference." So there's a lot of different ways to do that, but. In terms of finding out, a tour is great. The website is great. Attending an event, all the events are on the website. I think the next big event is the crab feed. So
which we know is the best crab feed in the market. It is, and
it's going to sell out super fast. It always does. So we'll have 400 people there, and it'll sell out. And
that's a big crowd.
At least 400, maybe more. I don't know.
Well, I have to thank you. I'm privileged to have the ability to not only speak with you, because you have a lot of work to do, and I really appreciate taking the time to speak with us. From all the things and all the people that are involved and all the children and families and services that you provide, thank you. And to your team and to everybody involved, and to maintaining what you have to maintain. An organization that's over 150 years old, you have a lot of responsibility in your hands and a lot of love in the community for it too. So
I'm glad you said that, because that's really the word that I think is most important, is about the amount of love that we have. I think that comes from our staff. It comes from our volunteers. It comes from our supporters. They really do care, and we have a great team. So it's a lot of responsibility, but it's one of those things where you have such great people around you. It's really more of a, how could we not succeed with the group that we have and the volunteers that we have?
Well, you're creating certainly a sustainable resource for the community that is a preservation of something that's been around for so long.
Yeah.
And for that, I thank you and appreciate what you do.
Yeah. Well, I'll steal something from Jim Harbaugh and I'll say, well, who has it better than us? And that's sort of how I view the children's home. Who has it better than us? We have an opportunity to to serve kids and families, but we have a great community and a great group of staff that support that. So,
well, saying it from Jim Harbaugh to a Chicago native, I appreciate that.
yes.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If what you heard moved you, please reach out to that organization and do what you can to help. If you like and appreciate what we're doing to support local nonprofits, please give us a positive review, subscribe, and share. If you're a nonprofit with an interest in participating in an episode, you can reach me at jeff@hearmenowstudio.com. If you have a need for the services or products our sponsors offer, please reach out to them. CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations, Runyon Saltzman Incorporated, RSE, marketing, advertising, and public relations creating integrated communications committed to improving lives, and Western Health Advantage, a full-service healthcare plan for individuals, employer groups, and families. The Nonprofit Podcast Network is a production of, is recorded at, and edited by Hear Me Now Studio.